Brought to you by WikiVidi.com. Denali. Denali is the highest mountain peak in North America, with a summit elevation of 20,310 feet above sea level, with a topographic prominence of 20,156 feet, and a topographic isolation of 4,629 miles. Denali is the third most prominent and third most isolated peak after Mount Everest and Aconcagua, located in the Alaska Range in the interior of the U.S. state of Alaska. Denali is the centerpiece of Denali National Park and Preserve. The Koyukon people who inhabit the area around the mountain have referred to the peak as Denali for centuries. In 1896, a gold prospector named it Mount McKinley, in support of then-presidential candidate William McKinley. That name was the official name recognized by the United States government from 1917 until 2015. In August 2015, following the 1975 lead of the state of Alaska, the U.S. Department of the Interior announced the change of the official name of the mountain to Denali. In 1903, James Wickersham recorded the first attempt at climbing Denali, which was unsuccessful. In 1906, Frederick Cook claimed the first ascent, which was later proven to be false. The first verifiable ascent to Denali summit was achieved on June 7, 1913 by climbers Hudson Stuck, Harry Carstens, Walter Harper and Robert Tatum, who went by the South Summit. In 1951, Bradford Washburn pioneered the West Buttress route, considered to be the safest and easiest route, and therefore the most popular currently in use. On September 2, 2015, the U.S. Geological Survey announced that the mountain is 20,310 feet high, not 20,320 feet, as measured in 1952 using photogrammetry. Geology and features. Denali is a granitic pluton lifted by tectonic pressure from the subduction of the Pacific Plate beneath the North American Plate. At the same time, the sedimentary material above and around the mountain was stripped away by erosion. The forces that lifted Denali also cause many deep earthquakes in Alaska and the Aleutian Islands. The Pacific Plate is seismically active beneath Denali, a tectonic region that is known as the McKinley Cluster. Denali has a summit elevation of 20,310 feet above sea level, making it the highest peak in North America, and the northernmost mountain above 6,000 meters elevation in the world. Measured from base to peak at some 18,000 feet, it is among the largest mountains situated entirely above sea level. Denali rises from a sloping plain with elevations from 1,000 to 4 or base to peak height of 17,002. By comparison, Mount Everest rises from the Tibetan Plateau at a much higher base elevation. Base elevations for Everest range from 13,800 feet on the south side to 17,100 feet on the Tibetan Plateau, for a base-to-peak height in the range of 12,002. Denali's base-to-peak height is little more than half the 33,500 feet of the volcano Mauna Kea, which lies mostly underwater. Layout of the mountain. Denali has two significant summits. The south summit is the higher one, while the north summit has an elevation of 19,470 feet and a prominence of approximately 1,270 feet. The north summit is sometimes counted as a separate peak and sometimes not. It is rarely climbed, except by those doing routes on the north side of the massif. 5 large glaciers flow off the slopes of the mountain. The Peters Glacier lies on the northwest side of the massif, while the Muldrow Glacier falls from its northeast slopes. Just to the east of the Muldrow, and abutting the eastern side of the massif, is the Tralika Glacier. The Ruth Glacier lies to the southeast of the mountain, and the Kahaltner Glacier leads up to the southwest side of the mountain, with a length of 44 miles. The Carholtner Glacier is the longest glacier in the Alaska Range. Naming: the Koyukon Athabascans who inhabit the area around the mountain have for centuries referred to the peak as Denali or Denali. The name is based on a Koyukon word for high or tall. During the Russian ownership of Alaska, the common name for the mountain was Bolshaya Gora, which is the Russian translation of Denali. It was briefly called Densmore's Mountain in the late 1880s and early 1890s after Frank Densmore, an Alaskan prospector who was the first European to reach the base of the mountain. In 1896, a gold prospector named it McKinley as political support for then presidential candidate William McKinley, who became president the following year. The United States formally recognized the name Mount McKinley after President Wilson signed the Mount McKinley National Park Act of February 26, 1917. In 1965, Lyndon B. Johnson declared the north and south peaks of the mountain the Churchill Peaks, in honor of British statesman Winston Churchill. The Alaska Board of Geographic Names changed the name of the mountain to Denali in 1975, which was how it is called locally. However, a request in 1975 from the Alaska State Legislature to the United States Board on Geographic Names to do the same at the federal level was blocked by Ohio Congressman Ralph Regular, whose district included McKinley's hometown of Canton. On August 30, 2015, just ahead of a presidential visit to Alaska, the Barack Obama administration announced the name Denali would be restored in line with the Alaska Geographic Board's designation. U.S. Secretary of the Interior Sally Jewell issued the order changing the name to Denali on August 28, 2015, effective immediately. Jewell said the change had been a long time coming. The renaming of the mountain received praise from Alaska's senior U.S. Senator Lisa Murkowski, who had previously introduced legislation to accomplish the name change, but it drew criticism from several Ohio politicians such as Governor John Kasich, U.S. Senator Rob Portman, U.S. House Speaker John Boehner, and Representative Bob Gibbs, who described Obama's action as constitutional overreach because he said an act of Congress is required to rename the mountain. The Alaska Dispatch News reported that the Secretary of the Interior has authority under federal law to change geographic names when the Board of Geographic Names does not act on a naming request within a reasonable period of time. Jewell told the Alaska Dispatch News that, "I think any of us would think that 40 years is an unreasonable amount of time." Indigenous names for Denali can be found in 7 different Alaskan languages. The names fall into 2 categories. To the south of the Alaska Range in the Denali and Ahtna languages, the mountain is known by names that are translated as Big Mountain. To the north of the Alaska Range in the lower Tanana, Koyukon, Upper Kuskokwim, Holy Kachuk, and Akshinag languages, the mountain is known by names that are translated as the High One, the Tall One, a Big Mountain. Asked about the importance of the mountain and its name, Will Mayo, former president of the Tanana Chiefs Conference, an organization that represents 42 Athabascan tribes in the Alaskan interior, said, "It's not one homogeneous belief structure around the mountain, but we all agree that we're all deeply gratified by the acknowledgement of the importance of Denali to Alaska's people." The following table lists the Alaskan Athabascan names for Denali. History. The Koyukon Athabascans, living in the Yukon, Tanana and Kuskokwim basins, were the first Native Americans with access to the flanks of the mountain. A British naval captain and explorer, George Vancouver, is the first European on record to have cited Denali when he noted distant stupendous mountains while surveying the Nick arm of the Cook Inlet on May 6, 1794. The Russian explorer Lavrentiy Zagoskin explored the Tanana and Kuskokwim rivers in 1843 and 1844, and was likely the first European to sight the mountain from the other side. William Dickey, a New Hampshire-born resident of Seattle, Washington who had been digging for gold in the sands of the Susitna River, wrote after his returning from Alaska an account in the New York Sun that appeared on January 24, 1897. His report drew attention, with the sentence, "We have no doubt that this peak is the highest in North America, and estimate that it is over 20,000 feet high." Until then, Mount Logan in Canada's Yukon Territory was believed to be the continent's highest point, though later praised for his estimate. Dickey admitted that other prospector parties had also guessed the mountain to be over 20,000 feet. On November 5, 2012, the United States Mint released a 25-cent piece depicting Denali National Park. It is the 15th of the America the Beautiful Quarter series. The reverse features a Dall sheep with the peak of Denali in the background. Climbing history. The first recorded attempt to climb Denali was by Judge James Wickersham in 1903, via the Peters Glacier and the north face now known as the Wickersham Wall. Because of the route's history of avalanche danger, it was not successfully climbed until 1963. Famed explorer Dr. Frederick Cook claimed the first ascent of the mountain in 1906. His claim was regarded with some suspicion from the start, but was also widely believed. It was later proved false with some crucial evidence provided by Bradford Washburn when he was sketched on a lower peak. In 1910, four area locals Tom Lloyd, Peter Anderson, Billy Taylor and Charles McGonigal, known as the Sourdough Expedition, attempted to climb Denali despite a lack of climbing experience. The group spent approximately 3 months on the mountain. Their purported summit ascent day included carrying a bag of donuts each, a thermos of hot chocolate and 14-foot spruce pole. Two of them reached the north summit, the lower of the two, and erected the pole near the top. According to the group, the time they took to reach the summit was a total of 18 hours, until the first ascent in 1913. Their claims were disbelieved in part due to false claims they had climbed both summits. In 1912, the Parker-Brown expedition nearly reached the summit, turning back within just a few hundred yards of it due to harsh weather. Hours after their ascent, the Great Earthquake of 1912 shattered the glacier they had ascended. The first ascent of the main summit of Denali came on June 7, 1913 by a party led by Hudson Stuck and Harry Carstens. The first man to reach the summit was Walter Harper, an Alaska native. Robert Tatum also made the summit. Using the mountain's contemporary name, Tatum later commented, "The view from the top of Mount McKinley is like looking out the windows of heaven." They ascended the Muldrow Glacier route pioneered by the earlier expeditions, which is still often climbed today. Stuck confirmed via binoculars the presence of a large pole near the north summit. This report confirmed the Sourdough ascent, and today it is widely believed that the Sourdoughs did succeed on the north summit. However, the pole was never seen before or since, so there is still some doubt. Stuck also discovered that the Parker-Brown party were only about 200 feet of elevation short of the true summit when they turned back. The mountain is regularly climbed today. In 2003, around 58% of climbers reached the top, but by 2003, the mountain had claimed the lives of nearly 100 mountaineers over time. The vast majority of climbers use the West Buttress route pioneered in 1951 by Bradford Washburn. After an extensive aerial photographic analysis of the mountain, climbers typically take 2 to 4 weeks to ascend Denali. It is one of the 7 summits Summiting all of them is a challenge for mountaineers. Weather station. The Japan Alpine Club installed a meteorological station on a ridge near the summit of Denali, at an altitude of 18,733 feet in 1990. In 1998, this weather station was donated to the International Arctic Research Center at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. In June 2002, a weather station was placed at the 19,000 feet level. This weather station was designed to transmit data in real time for use by the climbing public and the science community. Since its establishment, annual upgrades to the equipment have been performed, with instrumentation custom-built for the extreme weather and altitude conditions. This weather station is the third highest weather station in the world. The weather station recorded a temperature of 75.5 degrees Fahrenheit on December 1, 2003. On the previous day of November 30, 2003, a temperature of 74.4 degrees Fahrenheit combined with a wind speed of 18.4 miles per hour to produce a North American record wind chill of 118.1 degrees Fahrenheit. Even in July, this weather station has recorded temperatures as low as 22.9 degrees Fahrenheit. And wind chills as low as 59.2 degrees Fahrenheit. Historical record. The mountain is characterized by extremely cold weather. Temperatures as low as 75.5 degrees Fahrenheit. And wind chills as low as 118.1 degrees Fahrenheit have been recorded by an automated weather station located at 18,733 feet. According to the National Park Service, in 1932 the Lindley expedition recovered a self-recording minimum thermometer left near Brown's Tower at about 15,000 feet on Denali by the Stuck-Carstens Party in 1913. The spirit thermometer was calibrated down to 95 degrees Fahrenheit, and the lowest recorded temperature was below that point. Harry J. Leck took the thermometer back to Washington, D.C., where it was tested by the United States Weather Bureau and found to be accurate. The lowest temperature that it had recorded was found to be approximately 100 F. Another thermometer was placed at the 15,000 feet level by the U.S. Army Natick Laboratory, and was there from 1950 to 1969. The coldest temperature recorded during that period was also 100 F. Brought to you by WikiVidi.com. Would you like to know more?